Hey folks, Eric Prey, Focus Fishing Guide Service. Got another video fishing report for you for Table Rock Lake. It is Tuesday, April the 18th. Current lake level, we are at 912.75, so we're still about 2 feet below normal. Lake is coming up, got quite a bit of rain over the weekend, and they actually got about 2 inches of rain there in Branson. So definitely going to have the lake come up. We've got a lot more rain coming in later this week. So I expect that lake level to rise. We will probably get a lot closer to normal pool 915 by the end of the weekend, might even go over. I mean, they're estimating anywhere from 2 to 3 inches or up to 5 inches this weekend of rain. So anything's possible. So far they haven't been that accurate. Water temperature, you're looking at about 65 on average right now. Have seen as high as 71 in some of the backs of the creeks. Really you're looking at about 65 as the average, 67 usually in the afternoon. Get back in some of the dirtier creeks or up in some of the dirtier water in the backs of some of the coves, especially if you get some wind blowing the silt around, you will see 70, 71, 72. As far as the spawn is concerned, if I were to put a number on it and estimate, I would say probably at least 50 to 60% of the fish have already spawned, if not more. Most of the fish I'm seeing on beds and that I've seen on beds over the weekend have been largemouth. Haven't seen a lot of smallmouths, haven't seen a lot of Kentuckys, have been catching a lot of smallmouth and Kentuckys with the signs that they're already post-spawn. Some of them have bloody tails, some of them have flat bellies, and just not seeing that many Kentuckys and smallmouth up there shallow on the beds. Most of what we're seeing on the beds have been largemouth. Not saying they all spawned. I'm sure you can catch some spawning smallmouth and some spawning Kentuckys. I'm just saying I think the majority of the fish have already spawned, largemouth included. Caught a lot of largemouth with bloody tails, flat bellies out there off the bank. So sure, you can probably catch some sight fishing if you want to this weekend. I'm going to tell you though, I feel like most of the fish have already spawned out. So you guys are coming down, you're going to fish the lower end of the lake. Probably the best bite I've got going on right now is still on that smaller Kitech swing impact fat, that 2.8, matching that up with a 1/4 ounce jewel swim gem head. Most of these fish are suspended down there that we've been catching on it. Put the boat in about 25 to 30 foot of water and pay attention where you're seeing the shad. Starting to see shad showing up on the surface, getting chased by fish, throw it around schooling fish, but catching a lot of fish, mostly over probably 15 to 30 foot of water on that. But you really got to watch the shad, pay attention to your graph, pay attention to where the shad may be busting on the surface, and you will catch some fish on the Kitech. We have started to see some topwater action going on, catching a few on a spook, catching a few on a popper, a few on some walking baits or some wake baits, but not really a predictable pattern. Seems like when you have a cloudy day, when the rain passes through this weekend, if you have a cloudy day and not a lot of wind, you can catch a few on topwater as well. And then of course the jewel squirrel head's been really good, jewel magnum shaky head's been good, Ned rig's been good, matching the squirrel head and the magnum shaky head up with either a UV beaver, a finesse worm, or a speed craw. Working that from about 12 to 18 foot deep seems to be where most of the fish are, mainly on the insides of the points leading in the spawning pockets. You know, they're not necessarily in the pockets, they're more on those points leading into the spawning pockets. Catching a lot of fish on that, catching a lot of fish on the Ned rig, catching a lot of fish on a tube. The Bass Pro tender tube started working really well as well. So there's a lot of bites going on down on the lower end. Going to the Kimberling City area, same bites are happening there. Definitely got a good topwater bite. Seems like that topwater bite may be a little bit further along in Kimberling City. Spook, Sammy, popper, all those baits are working really well. Then if you want to fish something a little bit down in the water column, that Kitech is working great as well. The swing impact fat 2.8 on a 2.8 or on a 1/4 ounce jewel swim gem head is working really well. Again, these fish are suspended. They can be over as much as 50 or 60 foot. Just pay attention to where you're seeing the shad and where you're seeing the fish bust. That's where you're going to find the fish. And then of course your bottom baits. Doing well with the squirrel head, doing well with the magnum shaky head. Both of those fished with a speed craw, a finesse worm, or any of those baits we normally throw on that. A Bass Pro tender tube's working really well down there as well, and so is the Ned rig, and so is a split shot rig. Catching quite a few fish on split shot rig, rigging that up with a fish doctor. Zoom fish doctor seems to be the best bait on that. And again, those fish are not real deep, but they're not right up on the bank. They seem to be outside that moss line. 15 to 18 foot deep is definitely your best bet to catch those fish on the inside of those spawning pockets. Just on the inside points. Some of them moved out to the points, but they really seem to be on the inside of those spawning pockets. They're done spawning, they're working their way back out, so we're targeting them as they're coming back out. Go up the James, and an awesome jig bite remains up the James. Still catching a lot on the Jewel Pro spider jig, especially around docks, around spawning pockets. One or two single docks on the inside of a spawning pocket or on a point leading into a spawning pocket is definitely going to be your best bet with a spider jig. Throwing Okeechobee blue, green pumpkin candy, typical colors, matching that up with a speed craw, catching quite a few fish doing that. Catching fish on the squirrel head up there, catching fish on the Magnum shaky head up there, few on a Ned rig, few on a tube. Seems like I do a little bit better with bulkier baits up there though. So I have been fishing the squirrel head and the Magnum shaky head with the speed craw and with a bigger worm, like maybe a UV Anko or a Magnum finesse worm from Zoom. Any of those on there seem to get more bites. Again, the fish are a little bit shallower up there. The moss doesn't seem to be quite as bad, especially when you get up around point 12. So I've been able to catch fish as shallow as about 8 or 10 feet up the James. And around docks, it seems like if you get under the docks, there's not as much moss, so I've been able to catch them shallow around there too. White River, it's no secret, White River is my favorite arm of the lake to fish, and it continues to be one of the most productive arms of the lake to fish. There around the Baxter area, the same bites. The Kitek's working, the Topwater's working, the Squirrel Head's working. Any of those baits are working. Kitek, swing impact fat, 2.8 on a 1/4 ounce swim gem around those fish that are suspended, the schooling fish. See fish busting the surface, throw a spooks, throw a Sammy, throw a popper. You can catch a lot of fish on the top water up that way. And then of course the bottom bouncers as well. The Jewel Squirrel Head, or the Magnum Shaky Head, Ned Rig, Bass Pro Tender Tube. All those baits are working really well in and around spawning pockets, either in the pocket, just outside the pocket. You go up a little bit further and bigger baits seem to be producing better than the smaller baits, catching a lot of fish on the Magnum finesse worm on the shaky head, and catching a lot of fish on the Zoom speed craw on a squirrel head. Doing really well with those baits up there too. It's just been really fun to fish, and I think it's only going to get better. We're going to have a lot more of these fish get into the post-spawn mode. They'll be feeding up a lot more, so the bite's only going to get better. I mean, it is halfway through April. Bite's fantastic. Fish are biting like crazy. Catching a lot of fish, and actually starting to catch some better fish, especially on top water early and late in the day. And actually, if it's cloudy, we've been catching them on top water all day long. But you know, May's coming up. It's going to be May's always my favorite month to fish this lake, because you're going to catch a lot of fish. That's when these 50, 60, 100 fish days, that's when they really start kicking in. We start catching a lot of fish on a 4, 6, or 8 hour trip. Catching a lot of fish, catching them shallow, fun to catch, smallmouth, largemouth, spotted bass. It doesn't matter. We catch a lot of fish in May, so great time to come down. But if you guys are coming down, thinking about hiring a guide, give me a call. It's Focus Fishing Guide Service. You can reach me at 417-860-4743. Hit my website, focusfishing.com. Shoot me an email, or you can book online. Just check the calendar, make sure your date's available, go through the online booking process, get you hooked up. Whether you send me an email or book online, I get back to you within 12 hours. Great way to get a trip booked. I've got a few dates open in May. Actually, I got quite a few open in May. April's pretty much done, but I've got a few dates open in May. If you guys are thinking about coming down, good idea to get with me as soon as possible to get your date picked out. But I really appreciate you guys watching the videos. Thanks for subscribing, those of you who subscribed. Can't wait to hear from you. We'll see you on the water.